And I'm Chris Narveson, Senior Sustaining Engineer, CSWE as of last month. Thank you very much. Yeah, that one was a tough one. Anyway, so let's just jump right in. Just right off the bat, I'll tell you guys, I want this to be really interactive, if I can get this clicker thing to work. Nope. All right, I guess I'll just do it the manual way. All right. Come on now. Yeah. It seems the range is really limited on these guys. Yeah. Of course, it worked 5 minutes ago when I tested it. All right. There we go. So composer sessions, so where are we at? We're at 1:30 on Tuesday. So hopefully the other ones, I'm really looking forward to the digital photos are for vacation next session, so that'll be cool. So hopefully you guys had a chance to stay on the track here and see all the other stuff. This is great. I mean, SolidWorks World, this is probably the most composer stuff that's been at SolidWorks World yet, so this is really cool. So hopefully you guys have had some time to get into those. CSI, so, you know, I'm with CSI, Las Vegas, Nevada. 283 homicide investigations over 13 years. 98% conviction rate, you know, that's great. I get to work with Elizabeth Shue. Yeah, I wish. No, it's not that CSI, although we do have the rights for that, for CSI, the 3 letters. We actually got it before CBS Network got it, but our lawyers recommended we not go up against CBS, and it's probably a good idea. So, no, CSI that I work for, Cardiovascular Systems Incorporated. We build a catheter-based, disposable, single-use orbital atherectomy device using interventional cardiology procedures. Say that like 15 times fast, right? To treat PAD. PAD is peripheral artery disease. So calcification, clogs, blockages in your arteries. Our current approval is for class 2 peripheral only, arms and legs. We just finished a clinical trial for a coronary application for the exact same technology. So basically what it is, it's a long wired shaft with a diamond-coated piece of tungsten on the end of it that's eccentrically mounted, so it goes down your artery, spins around, wobbles around inside your artery at 150, 200,000 RPM, and it'll go up and actually grind up the plaque and the calcified stuff that's built up on the inner walls of your arteries. So peripheral, like I said, in the coronary trial, we just finished just over 500 patients to a resounding success, so we're hoping for FDA clinical approval before the end of the year. So that'll be huge for us. We've been commercial since fall of 2007. Public since winter 2009. We're on the NASDAQ if you're interested. Launched our 4th generation device March 2011. So go from fall of 2007 from our first device to March 2011, our 4th device. That'll give you an idea of what our design cycle is. So pretty quick. We haven't done another release since 2011 because we're in FDA purgatory, which basically means we're in design freeze. We can't change anything until we get the FDA approval. But once we do, you know, that engine will start right up back again. So about 200 employees, 75 or so in St. Paul, Minnesota, 25 or so in Houston, Texas, where our manufacturing is. About 100 external sales nationwide, so we're about 200, 250 people, total company. Over 50,000, we're closer to 60,000 now, peripheral procedures in over 500 hospitals across the country. So a pretty established device, pretty established procedure for our device as of right now. So that's a little bit about CSI. It like loses its link or something. I'm just going to stay close to it, I guess. There we go. That's funny, it's changing up here, but it's not changing up there. Hang on a second, guys. Sorry about this. There we go. Testing, 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 testing. Okay. Do it this way. So who am I? That's me right there, BS in Aerospace. So I'm an engineer. I'm not a tech pub guy or a creative person, but 5 years in automotive, 5 years in med device. Spent a lot of time in process development, a lot of time with manufacturing engineers, a lot of time with the product development guys too in the development. So I kind of can get, that's the cool thing about working for a small company is you get to see both sides of the fence pretty evenly. Spent a couple years managing the engineering design services group, and that group what we did is we managed all the CAD as well as the tech pubs, as well as anything else anybody needed us to do as far as simulation, SolidWorks CAD, marketing, sales. So it was a really cool position to be in, and that's when I got involved with Composer because we were doing a lot of things kind of across the board and not just in the engineering and development group. So that helped introduce me to this tool. My current role is a sustaining engineer, which is basically cost reduction, cost avoidance. So working with both R&D and manufacturing to do cost reductions in the design, in the parts themselves, but also in our processes, our manufacturing processes, R&D processes, things like that. I also have 2 years, I do some contracting through my own company in my spare time. That's a lot of CAD work, but it's a lot of design prep and things like that for people looking for patent applications and things like that. So I like that because it gets me good experience outside what my normal 9 to 5 is, which is a lot of fun. CSWE as of 2012, and we've been on Composer at CSI for just over 4 years now. Yeah, it seems right. So we were not the first, but one of the first. We were pretty quick to pick it up. So I'm hopeful that I can kind of tell you guys what we've learned through our initial experience. What I want to learn is from you too. So let's keep it open, keep it discussion. I've really only got, like I said, I've got like 15 slides. I'll tell you what I've done, tell you what we've done. I want to hear just as much about what you guys have done, what you guys are doing, and just make it really kind of open. So what I'll talk about, problems. Our initial problem that kind of prompted the whole need for a tool like Composer was our manufacturing work instructions. And that seems to be, of the people I talk to, that's kind of a common thing, and it's not across the board though as far as how people are using it. So I'll tell you about how we used it in that respect, and then how else you can use it, how else we used it outside of manufacturing. I've got a couple quick videos I can show you of just demo. I'm not going to jump into Composer and build animations and things like that. You guys can see that in the other sessions. I want to talk more about, give you examples of what we've done so you can see kind of how we've used it, and then just use that as kind of a springboard for discussion. I'll talk a bit about what the immediate benefits were to the company, to my group, to me personally, what our immediate barriers were, and then how we solved them, which is good info to have. Then we'll talk about some long-term benefits. We're 4 years in now since our first license, so I can talk a little bit about how the long-term benefits have helped us out, and also the barriers that we've seen over the long term and how we've worked through them. So, best practices, I'll give you kind of just a quick rundown of the best practices I picked up. I'm hoping you guys can add to the list for me, and we can have a good discussion on that. We'll talk about MN3D via user group, which is my user group. And hopefully we can spawn some discussion there. And then then we'll open it up. So after that. So any questions on that stuff? Any comments? Anybody else, you guys? Anything else you want to see? I don't have any donuts. Sorry, Susan. So quick kind of survey just by show of hands. I want to know who you guys are so we can sort of temper the discussion, and I'll temper kind of what I talk about. Engineers and technicians by show of hands. Okay. Mostly, okay. Tech writers, do we have any tech writers in here? Tech pub people, excellent. Graphics designers, marketing and sales people, okay. SolidWorks users, You guys saw SolidWorks World, so most of you should be SolidWorks users. Current Composer users, you haven't installed, you're using it? Okay, about half, maybe a little less than half. You're just here because your boss told you to come. No, I'm just kidding, I'm kidding. Okay, you have it installed, but you don't use it, okay. We can talk about that, how to get you over that hump too. So a little bit about how the whole Composer story started at CSI. For me personally, it all started with our manufacturing work instructions. How we use them. Our device is very artsy-craftsy. You know, a lot of parts. It's hand-built. You know, we have very little automation because we're so low volume. You know, I think our maximum volume has been 600 devices per week, and that's a big week for us. We're more like 200 to 300 per week. In our tiny little clean room, I think we've got 10 people in all that stand in the clean room and put the thing together. So as a result, our work instructions were very artsy-craftsy as well. So you can see they weren't very kind of accessible to the outside people, and some problems that resulted with that, and we'll talk about that a little later. Another problem with the way we were doing work instructions in Microsoft Word is, you know, when you do Microsoft Word, you have pictures, right? Digital photographs. You can't have digital photographs, you have parts. And that always made the process development guys kind of upset because they couldn't do any real work until the development guys were done, you know, had tooled parts on their hands. So we'll talk about how we got around to that. And of course, we were in a paper-based system. So how many of you guys are still using a paper-based system for manufacturing? How many of you are fully electronic? Okay, how many of you are somewhere in between? How many of you don't know? Okay. So that was the main issue, that the work instructions, we were having all kinds of problems with scrap, with non-conformance in the work instructions. You know, our operators and assemblers not understanding what's in the work instruction, our manufacturing engineers not understanding what's in the work instruction. And if you have any experience with the FDA, that can be a huge issue with the FDA. They come in and audit you, and they can point out objective evidence of people not pertaining or being confined to their work instructions, and that can be a big, big, big problem. A lot of companies have gotten warning letters and things like that from the FDA for that very reason. So this is just kind of a snapshot of what our work instructions used to look like. Some of them still do look like this, I'm sad to say, but I mean, you can look at this as a Word document, right? And it's probably a combination of 6 or 7 different programs that were used to generate this content. I mean, we've got photographs, we've got SolidWorks screenshots here. I don't even know what this is. I think that's something somebody did in Excel, maybe. You know, that one's just a box, you know, in Word. So not great, right? And unless you look at that every day, and even the guys who did look at that every day, half the time they didn't know what it meant. So this is what we ended up with, and this is one of our more complicated. This is actually an electronics assembly. And like I said, I'm not going to really get into the nitty-gritty of the software. I'll leave that to the guys in the other sessions. But you guys know about 3D view, about Composer. It's 3D, it's interactive, pulls right off SolidWorks. It's all the content that's already there. And you can see we've got our storyboard over there, our timeline. I like to show this slide because another thing that I think is generally overlooked as far as the powers of Composer is if you're in the group where if you use a lot of custom design tools, custom fixturing, which we do. We have custom fixturing, custom tools in literally almost every single step of our process. Those tools designs, those fixtures are done in SolidWorks, right? So you've already got that information, that 3D data. You don't have to build it, take pictures, you know, do all this stuff. It's already in there. You can dump your fixtures and your tools right in with your parts and your components in Composer. It's already there. So that's a big advantage for us. So kind of branching out outside of manufacturing, where else does it work? So basically anywhere that you've got 3D data already. So obviously manufacturing, R&D, that works. Easy to add content for your assembly instructions, views, animations. Beyond that, going into training and sales, I'm a big fan. I do a lot of these how it works animations that we use for training new employees, that we use for training salespeople, that we use for training customers if they're interested in how the device works, what's inside, how the parts inside do it. You've got all that stuff in CAD already, right? Why not use it? Why not leverage it? And Composer allows you to do that. Setup instructions, same story. Field service, having our sales pros set up. You know, we send these things, we ship these things to especially our capital equipment piece that's not in the sterile field that they've got to plug everything into. It's kind of a complicated piece of equipment. It comes shipped in a big box. They've got to put it together before they can use it. You know, and half the time you've got the scrub tech or the lab tech at the cath lab at the hospital has got to come down and put this thing together. He doesn't have time to do it. He's already 2 hours over his shift, you know, so you got to make these things as easy as possible. And then internal communications. This is a big one too. I like to use this for, if I just think up crazy ideas for a new fixture, for a new idea, I can do a quick animation in Composer, you know, do a movie file capture, email it to somebody, dump it onto my iPad, walk down to the clean room, walk down to the lunchroom, pull it up. Hey, what do you guys think of this? You know, it's really is a good communication tool for your non-CAD users that they can really identify with and they can really interact with really well. And the big thing, this is huge with the Composer, because it's in CAD, it's resident with your CAD documentation, your SolidWorks stuff, it's all concurrent. You can do all of this while the R&D and development guys are still playing around and still iterating, because you can just pull things out of your vault, pull your models out and use them. So talk about immediate benefits. The one thing we saw really quickly was the training. And that's mainly what we're using these animations now for, is training new employees. And when we do a new product launch, we'll generate an animation to train the assemblers and technicians how to build the device. And if you can give them something that's 3D, that's interactive, that they can pull apart, it's way better than sitting somebody down in front of a binder, you know, that's this thick, full of Word documents with photos, that is meaningless to them, right, until they actually get the parts in their hand. You give them something in 3D out of Composer, and it's like, it's right there. They got it. So 25%. We saw a good reduction in scrap, too, just because of the things were that much more understandable. You know, people knew what they were doing once they got their parts in their hands, started putting things together, not damaging stuff. And of course, because it's you know, we were doing animations, we were running the animations on workstations in our clean room, gets us away from the paper-based system, which is always great. Facilitates rev control, facilitates security, all kinds of great logistical things we saved on there. And of course, because it's 3D, I keep harping on it, you get your good, rich, intuitive content. A little bit talk about barriers. So it's new software, right? It's a little different than probably, unless you're some of you tech pub guys may have seen something else that's different. That's kind of closest. But if you're a SolidWorks user going to 3D via Composer, they've done a lot of work in the last recent years to make them really intuitive and really work, but it is new software. So you got to give your team time to learn it. So that's kind of the number one thing I would tell you guys. If you take away nothing else from our discussion today, make sure you build into your project timeline training. Your VAR, your reseller, should have a great training path that you can send your people to. It's like 2 or 3 days, right, Tony? I think you can do 3 days. It's great. Send them to that. Give them 3 days. Give them another week after that to just play with it and figure out what they can do and what they can't do with it. Don't sit down somebody with the manual and say, here, learn it. You know, unless they're the kind of person who learns like that, but I have yet to meet somebody that has. So make sure you make time in there for the learning curve for the software. Skill silo, cross-train, cross-train, cross-train. I mean, you say that about any business process in the entire world, right? This is no different. You can't have one person in the entire company that knows how to run Composer, because that person is going to end up working 80 hours a week, and nobody likes to work 80 hours a week. And then paradigm shift, especially if, I affectionately call them the dinosaurs, if you have these guys in manufacturing that have been doing the same thing the exact same way for the last 25 years, which is great. Those guys have great experience. You know, they bring a lot to the table. But with a tool like this, it is a pretty heavy paradigm shift. Even going from a paper-based Word document to a 3D animation, even to a paper-based Word document with Composer picture files in it is a bit of a change, right? Because they're like, you're using the SolidWorks stuff, what's going on? So, you know, just like anything else, get the stakeholders buy-in, you know, early and often. Is what I say. Yeah.
What is the cross-train between the Composer person and
yeah.
the manufacturing shop guy?
So we started it was me and our technical writer. We went first. And then we had one of the manufacturing engineers do the training, and then we had one of the dot control people do the training, right, Susan? I think it was. So there were 4 of us, and then between the 4 of us, then we kind of just trained everybody else. The one thing I will say about Composer, I hype on the steep learning curve, but the first kind of to get you over the initial hump where you can be productive is very quick. You know, somebody can go to the 3-day training, and then you can sit down, and within 2 hours, you can have somebody that's proficient enough that they can pull in a SolidWorks model, put in some basic notes or annotations, and grab a usable image that they can use somewhere else. Now, to get to the more advanced, if you're building animations and stuff, obviously it's more time than that. But it's really easy to grab a quality engineer, grab somebody from marketing. In our group, it started in tech pubs, but we went all the way through engineering, and then we went through the document control group as well. So and then we went the other way. We took the tech writer who had no SolidWorks experience, and we set her SolidWorks Essentials, so then she could see both sides of it. So training is a big thing. Any other questions? I'm going kind of fast. Sorry, guys. Feel free to speak up. So that was immediate barriers. Talk about long-term benefits. And this is kind of key. It's a real, I use the word paradigm shift. It takes your tech pubs, it takes your, sorry guys, go back one. Your manufacturing documentation, anything else you're using can really jump now into the 3D realm if you want to make that jump. I wouldn't necessarily recommend going that far to start with, but you can do it. Just like SolidWorks did, when we went from AutoCAD to SolidWorks. I mean, it's this huge increase in productivity, in content and efficiency. I really see the same potential with this, going from a 2D to a 3D world. And we've seen that, we really have. And this is my favorite. You don't need to use marketing creative anymore to get good looking content. You really don't. If you get the training and you set up and you get proficient with, with Composer, you can get stuff out of it that looks just as good as something you're going to get from an industrial design firm, a graphics design guy. If you're willing to put the time into it, you don't have to go out to those externals. And that's great, especially when in a small company like us, we don't necessarily have the resources to do that sort of thing and go outside and outsource everything. It's really kind of ingrown, in-house. Your engineers and technicians can do it. No reason they can't. So. Yeah, it's my good friend John Matrishon back there. He knows it, learns Composer, and now he's the Composer expert at his company. So all of a sudden. So that's why cross-train, cross-train, cross-train. So long-term barriers. So what I said, we've been in it for about 4 years now, right? So a couple of issues we ran into. And I wouldn't even say these are specific to Composer. I mean, these are things that you should be doing when you're introducing any kind of new software package in general, right? So this isn't rocket scientist. This shouldn't be really news to anybody. But I just want to cover it here so you guys know that it does apply, right? Use templates to standardize properties. Keep training and skill sets up to date and current. Composer is really good. They do a new release every 6 months, and every 6 months it gets better. But you've got to keep up on your training to learn what's new and what the changes are. I think we went from 10 to 11x, and it was 2 or 3 things fundamentally changed in how you would do it and how you would build it, and it made everything a lot more stable and a lot more productive. So keep up with the training. Retrain every 6 to 12 months. I say just like SolidWorks. If SolidWorks, they do a new release, how do you keep up? How do you keep up, right? You read their new release notes, you get on the forums, you talk to the Swuggen guys, same thing here. Got to keep up with it. PDM system for file control works just as good for Composer files as it does for SolidWorks. Manually build your links, put your rev controls in there. It's all good. Do it. Revision and ECO control. We found paperless change control should work best. We're still stuck in paper land now, except until about next month we're going to make the jump. And we'll go to electronic change control. But because of your SMG files in Composer are, it's an electronic document, right? So it's easy to control in that respect. And we use Player for reviews and markups. So the free Composer Player that you can have anybody download. I think our VP of manufacturing has an install, so he can pull things up and look at it. You can print stuff off if they still want to print screenshots off and mark it up. But that's what we use for reviews and markups. And know when to use it, when not to use it. It makes the most sense, Composer, if you've already got your content in SolidWorks. That's kind of where it's positioned, and that's where it makes the most sense. It's not going to replace MS Word, obviously. If you've got people that are using the Adobe stuff, those have their strengths too. Personally, I don't see any of them. I'm Composer 100% of the way, but depending on your company, I would just say I would recommend against saying, hey, we can get rid of all this other stuff with Composer. Maybe you can, but I wouldn't start there. Just 2 cents out of mine. So just a brief summary of best practices. A lot of time for training on the software. Start slow. We didn't do this. We jumped right into 3D animations. And there were some growing pains that we went up with. The content we ended up with was great, but there were some growing pains. Jason at our reseller, Jason Schroeder, was great, coming over, helping us a lot, getting things together and getting our best practices set up. But I wouldn't recommend that. Start slow. Use it to get your 2D screen captures, get your 2D images. You can get some really great high-quality images out of it very quickly that you can use. Once you've kind of progressed there, then maybe think about jumping into 3D animations. Then jump into your 3D animations interactive. So start slow and work your way up. I talked about getting all your stakeholders buy-in early and often. Manufacturing, quality, management, marketing, all those guys. Get them in a room, sit them down. There's all kinds of great demos out there you can pull off the web. I'll give you mine if you want to see them, if you want to use them. But let everybody know what it can do, what it can't do, what you want to use it for. What you plan to use it for, how it can really help. Standard templates and properties. Even if it's just an SOP document, standard operating procedure document that you write up that shows use these colors, use these line weights, use these colors it helps keeping things straight so you don't drive your document control and quality people crazy because everything looks different, right? So use those. Use PDM, obviously. Figure out approval process ahead of time. We had trouble with this because we went from a paper-based to what is essentially an electronic document. How do we review that? How do we control that? How do we handle things like rev control, sign-offs, things like that? So figure that out. We went down to, we actually have a cover page that goes with the ECO. It's a paper document that goes with the change order. We were cutting the SMG files onto a CD and then just paper clipping the CD. And it walked around with and it works, right? It becomes a document, and then that's your controlled copy. Probably not the most efficient way to do it, but it was, take this piece, stick them together, and get what we need. So, make sure your capabilities are known throughout the organization. That includes everything it can do. That also includes everything it can't do. So make sure you understand that and how to approach that in the conversations you're having. So that's kind of my slides. A quick plug for my user group, and then I'll show you guys I'll pull up the animations and just let them run, and I figure we can let them run and then we can talk and have a discussion. But I wanted to quick plug Minnesota 3DVIA user group, soon to be the Minnesota SolidWorks Composer user group because it's been rebranded as SolidWorks Composer. 3DVIA is going away. But first user group of its kind for Composer only. 2 meetings a year. We're actually going to 4 meetings a year in 2013. So all of you, I extend a personal invitation for you to come up to Minneapolis in February. I know it sounds really scary, but it's not too bad. Just bring a parka and a hat. Yeah, I'm only -7 today. Not too bad. So we do it in Twin Cities Metro. We'll do it February. We'll do probably May, and then August, and then again in November. So, and it's a great time. Steve Benson at MTS, I learned more in one day at Mason than I've learned in the previous 6 months. He's you guys know MTS, they're a big industrial company. And Steve's at their headquarters in the Twin Cities, and he's really adopted Composer, and he freaks out every time at the user group meeting because it's just great exchange of ideas and something he's been trying to figure out for the last 3 weeks, and somebody's like, oh, just do this. He's like, so it's good. So I highly recommend it. If you're interested in getting your own Composer user group started, talk to me, talk to Richard Doyle. We'll tell you how to do it because we're really trying to get the user group network going. Everything that it's done for SolidWorks, I think it has the exact same potential to do for Composer. So. As far as I know, it is. We're the only one. So somebody do one in Austin or Miami or something so people don't have to come to Minneapolis. Yeah, somewhere it's not -7. So that's all my info. I'll pull up my animations and you guys can see what we've done. So it's only 2 o'clock. We got half an hour. Let's talk. I know we got Tony from my reseller. We got Susan and Tara who Susan currently works with me. Tara used to work with me. They've got Composer experience. The guy who you said you have it installed but you're not using it, tell us why you're not using it. Okay. Okay, so it's your engineers that are telling you that, your technicians?
And the scope of it, when I purchased it, wasn't really clear. So we don't really know.
Okay. 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 So it's high capital stuff, probably, for your machinery?
Yeah, but it's not.
Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can talk to that a little bit. We, very same kind of barriers we fought through. The one recommendation I would give you there is just start simple and, get some images, because all your stuff is in SolidWorks, right? All your CAD? Okay. I mean, pull some images out. You don't have to do the animations. You don't have to do the high-end stuff. Just get some, the way I did it, I grabbed a current works instruction that we had that had the lousy photos in it, and I just redid it with Composer with the exact same images, and it took me 90 minutes to build it, and I showed it to them, and they're like, and then I'm like, oh, look how fast I can update it, and then redump the, and start there, start slow, so. Yeah, once people see it and they see what you can do with it, things start to open up. So, yes, sir. Yes, and they have, and they don't care. Yeah, you've got to have your document control procedures in place. None of that changes. You've got to have your sign-offs. You've got to have your controlled copies. You've got to have, rev control and all of that. None of that changes. You've just got to figure out how to apply all those rules to this. When the FDA comes and audit, they're interested in, you do what you say and you say what you do, right? And as long as you're doing that, they don't care what software package you use to get there. So, yeah, we haven't really seen any issues. Yep. Because we're all paper-based right now, we're wet signatures on everything with controlled copies is how we're made. Yeah. Yeah, you know, I guess I don't know the good answer to that because I'm not a conformance guy, but I do know that we, you know, like I said, we have the cover sheet that has the actual sign-off on it that references the document number, and then the document number is the name of the file name of the SMG of the composer file that's on the CD, and it's all controlled and it's all in a write-protected, you know. Yeah, revision, and it's got a revision level attached to it, and that's all within there. I mean, just like we control it, just like we'll control a, you know, an IFU or a label or a, you know, a CAD drawing. It's the same procedure. So, yeah, we haven't had any issues with it. So, yes, sir. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. What? Yeah, no, when it's me and 5 other guys, yeah, it's a bit different, yeah. Yeah. Yep. Redo it. Yep. Yeah. What's the resident document format that's distributed through the system? Is it a like a proprietary document format, or is it something that's okay? Okay. Okay. Yep. Right. Mm-hmm. So that makes it even easier if you're already electronic. I mean, what's being used to author the PDF? Okay. Okay. Yep. Right. Yeah. I mean, anything that you can dump a JPEG image into it, or a PNG image, because that's an output from Composer. You bring in, you set up your screenshot or your storyboard, you know, dump your picture files out, and then you can put those picture files in whatever you want. You're just generating the image in Composer. You know, so whatever your resident document format is, as long as it'll accept, you know, a Windows picture file, you can just dump into there and then go. But you got to get to whoever's, you know, authoring the original document. That goes straight through. Yes, sir. I have an example of a setup instruction that we use for sales. It's not a, it's, I can show you. No, they're running on a computer with an LCD monitor, and they're just running the player. They're running the Composer player, which is what I've got, what I'm showing you guys right here. Let me see here. Oh, the other cool thing If you guys probably already know this, but you can, these files that you can export, these are self-contained files. These .exes, it's actually an .exe that you can export out of Composer. So you need the player installed on your resident machine for it to work, because this .exe will export, and then you can just have whoever needs to look at it, pop it open, and it'll load the player. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one here. You can just email that .exe file to anybody, and they can pop it right open, regardless of what they've got. I'll show you this one. So this is a setup animation that we did for a sales and marketing group to send to the sales pros, so they know when they get the device in their account in the hospital, they know how to set it up. So I'll just play this one. I can't see it. Did I hit the right button? So and this is very cool because you can, and this is a few versions old now. But all of this is our CAD. This is dumped directly out of SolidWorks just into Composer. And then you can build this animation, put all the motion stuff in there. Little notes that they need to have. So the animations we did for manufacturing are very similar to this. There's a little bit more text on it. There's a little bit more wordage. But it basically looks like this. And then the other thing, we have stops in there so they can go through, and it goes through a certain section and it stops, and they have to hit a continue for it to go forward. So
like the text boxes and all that, is that all pretty editable?
Yep. Yep. And if you open Composer, you've got your properties box, which is the one that's down on the far left, and it's almost dizzying the amount of options you have with what you can do. Yeah, leaders, you can go, tool tips, pins, buttons, holes. I mean, I think you can even do your own custom ones, if I remember right, can you? So. You've got a photo or something? Yeah, you can drop them right in. And make reference to them. Yeah, they just pop up as objects. They call them actors, objects in your Composer file. So. Yeah, anything you've got in CAD will work. Anything, and even things you don't have in CAD, like I think we've got one that just uses a standard, Phillips screwdriver. And I could probably go out to 3D Content Central and grab a Phillips screwdriver and drop it in there. Or I've just got an image, it's a line drawing. It's a black and white line drawing of the screwdriver size, and it just says grab this, use this screwdriver, and use it on the tool. Yeah. It's one of these things that's like once you get it and you start using it, you're like, oh, I can use it here, I can use it here, I can use it here. It's like when you first bought a CNC machine, you're like, what am I going to use this for? And then all of a sudden there's a line out the door waiting for parts to come off the CNC machine. It's really similar. So, yes, sir.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Yeah, I can't hear you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's you talked about labor rate. That's a good point. There's manager types in here. You know, I don't know what engineering contractors cost you guys. Engineering contractors cost us a lot more than tech pub contractors cost us. Probably not the way it should be, just the reality of the situation, right? You know, using engineering resources and time to generate images when you can dump this off to your tech pubs group or your, you know, your manufacturing engineers, you can have your interns do it if you want. You know, we've done that too. It's great. It's a great tool for them. So, you know, freeing up your engineering resources, if you're structured such that you can do that, is a good way to. Yeah, I'm gonna get this guy over here.
We have a group that is moving from, you know, standard tech pubs that were printed out in the past to animations like this because most of their business is in Europe, and they want to do away with any of this text or anything because they're paying thousands of dollars to contractors outside just to do translations in a different language.
Yep, that's a very good point. The translations issue. I mean, images are images, right? And you know, the workforce these days too. I know a lot of our people, of our technicians in assembly, are great people, but English maybe isn't their first language, right? If you can go to an image-based system, 3D animated-based system that they can interact with that has minimal text content, man, you know, that's good stuff, right? So, yeah, this is setup animation we use for our salespeople. I've shown this to physicians too, to doctors, so they can run the device and know how to set up the device without having somebody on site. So, yes, sir, in the back. Yeah, I do a hyperlink, sort of. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do it kind of my own personal system where I've got the SMG files. And I've got them, actually I go in and take the time to link them. We're just on PDM Workgroup, we're not an enterprise, but I'll go take the time to go in and link them to my SolidWorks assembly that it's associated to, so I keep track of them that way. So, again, that works really well. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'd start with a reseller. They're a good place to start, just for the basic 101, you know, how to run it, and they're good for best practices. Earl's got some great content on the web on things that he's done. There's a lot of content, because it was, Composer, before Dassault acquired it, was a separate company, and you can even find some of that older stuff that's got, maybe it doesn't directly apply anymore to how to, you know, actually nuts and bolts, but there's some good, you know, technique stuff out there on how to build animations and get things to move the way you want them to. There's a lot of stuff on the web. Send me an email, I'll hook you up with the user group, and you can talk to people there too. So, yeah, I'll put up the last slide so you guys can see it. Yeah, I mean, that's the way, the way I build animations, the way our tech writer built the animations, is you kind of start with a storyboard, which is what's over here. So you load everything into your workspace, and then you manipulate it around, and then these are basically, you hit a capture button to grab your storyboard, and then you can literally drag the storyboard down into your timeline, and then it'll build the animation from there based on that, and then you can go in and add refinements that way. So, and it's a good shortcut because they show up in the player, and so you can just jump to, it's like, oh, I want to skip this part, I just want to jump, I just want to see the part where it mounts to the pole, I want to skip the rest of that stuff. So. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can do some cool things with interactivity. You can actually put buttons. We did it where we built a function where you put buttons in it and then have it jump to different places, or just put stops in the animation. There's a lot of things you can do to make it really interactive. You can even do text enter, like if you've got somebody that's got to put in a torque spec or something, and you want them to take a measurement and then enter that. Thanks, guys. There's a lot of stuff you can do, and it's one of those things that'll take you 5 seconds to figure out the basics, and you can work for a lifetime and still not find out everything that the software can do. So. I'm not sure. It's been so long since we set that up. I don't remember exactly how to do that. If it links to an external spreadsheet or something like that, I don't remember. But let me put the last slide up with my contact info on it so you guys can. Yes, sir. Sorry, say that again? Yeah, that is a bit of a rub. The more complicated you get with the content, the more difficult it is to update. It's kind of a 1-to-1 ratio. Something like that I just showed, that 3D animation. If you want to go in and move things around, if you know what you're doing, it's pretty straightforward, but it's not. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. So if your SolidWorks file changes, yeah, it's really easy. There's a couple ways you can do it, but if you build things right, it's a matter of 2 or 3 clicks. You change out the part file that is referenced in the SMG file, and everything goes through and updates. So it works really, for you SolidWorks guys, it's really similar to changing out a part in an assembly. Yeah, it's really similar to that. Very, very easy.
It'll update it all throughout your...
Yep.
Everything knows any animation on the file.
Because it sees it, it's a 3D entity that's inside the SMG file, and you update that 3D entity as it's referenced. If you're referencing that same one all the way through, that change will propagate all the way through. Yeah, yep. Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple ways you can do it. Yeah, I think you can set it up where it will push, automatically push an update. I wouldn't recommend doing that initially because it's really easy to get confused, but. Yeah, yep. Yeah, absolutely. It's a very good point. Anything else? Any questions you guys have for me? We got about 5 minutes left. Great discussion. Good stuff.